from North Carolina. This is GovLove, a podcast about local government. I'm Toney Thompson, your GovLove co-host for today's episode. Today, we're speaking with Lauren Sue, Lisa Mae Fielder, and Ruth Puttick about how U.S. cities are advancing the use of data in local governments. Lauren is with Results for America, where she serves as the director of the What Works City certification, the first of its kind standard of excellence for data-driven, well-managed local government. Since launching in 2017, more than 200 local governments have utilized What Works City's certification to assess and advance their data-driven practices. And as of today, 55 U.S. cities have achieved the certification recognition for their use of data and evidence in decision-making. Lisa is acting manager of reporting and analytics for the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, where she manages data-driven reporting and open data for the agency. Previously, Lisa worked with Lauren at Results for America. And Ruth is a senior policy advisor in the UK government's Open Innovation team. She previously worked at the global management consultancy, Tony Blair Associates, where she helped set up the research team. And before that, she worked at Nesta, the UK's innovation agency. She has collaborated with Results for America, including on this research project that we'll be discussing today that explores data-driven local government. Lisa, Lauren, Ruth, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, so welcome to GovLove. With all of our guests, we always do a lightning round of questions so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. So I have 3 questions for each of you, and we will go in the order of Lauren, Lisa, and Ruth. The first question that I have for you is, if you could have one superpower, what would it be and why? And we'll start with Lauren.
If I could have one superpower, it would be the power to heal. And I think that's a very cool power because I like to fix things. I like to try to make things better. And I'd like a power where I wasn't the only one who benefited from it. I'd like to be able to help others.
Yeah, that's a really awesome answer. I love that power. I was watching a movie. I don't remember what it was. I think it was maybe Encanto, where the mom could heal through
Yep,
food, and I was like, that
that's
was
right.
clever. I mean, you get good food and you get healing. Man, yeah, that's an awesome choice.
It's a win-win.
All right, that's a win-win. All right, let's go with Lisa. If you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
So as opposed to Lauren's very generous superpower answer, I would choose to teleport, mostly because I feel like at my current office, the lunch options are really sad, and I would love to be able to teleport somewhere cool for lunch.
Wow. I mean, awesome superpower choice. The reasoning is also just amazing, just so you can get some better lunch. That's great. That's great. And then Ruth, last but not least, what would be your superpower and why?
Mine is 100% self-serving, so I'm glad I'm not going after Lauren. My superpower would be the power to fly, because I would quite like to escape a dreary British winter and jet off to the Caribbean and lie in a hammock and drink some cocktails. Listen to some Bob Marley and just be in the sunshine. Yeah.
I love it.
Like a bird, and then come back in the summer.
Come back in the summer. I love that. That's great. Those are some really awesome answers. All right, second question for y'all. What is the best advice that you've ever received? And let's go with Lauren again.
Yeah, so best advice I've ever received, it comes from my sister, and it was to never loan money or possessions unless you're actually willing to give them away freely without the expectation of ever giving them back.
Wow.
And and I loved it because it just freed you from any resentments or negative emotions that can come when you give something or lend something to someone, and it just allows you to operate freely. So best advice ever.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Awesome. I love that one. Lisa, how about yourself?
Yeah, the best advice I've ever received is to never sit on the edge in a new situation. And I mean that quite literally. When you go to a conference or maybe it's your first day at school, never seat yourself at the edge because you limit the amount of people you are able to talk to that are directly next to you.
Oh yeah, I like
Wow.
that.
I'm going to
That's
take
great.
that one. I'm going to
That's
take both of
wonderful.
those, in fact.
Yeah, I like that. I tend to like sitting on the edge just because I like being able to get up and go to the bathroom easily without like disturbing other people. But I
Yeah,
like that.
same.
Yeah.
And I think as an introvert, you're very inclined to sit on the edge, but then you kind of like put yourself in a worse position by doing that.
I feel like you can
Yeah.
almost tell who is an introvert because I also like to sit on the edge. It's
Hmm.
like it's really interesting.
Yeah, this is a really interesting research study. I think we should do this, look into this a little bit more. All right, Ruth, how about yourself? Best advice.
Mine's quite similar to Lisa's, actually, which is if you're ever in a situation which is slightly intimidating, be that a work meeting or some other forum, speak first. Just don't hold
Mm,
back. And the second that you hear your own voice in the room, you feel more empowered to speak later, even if it's just to do a rousing hello to everybody. You feel more calm and reassured, and then you'll feel, able to
I
participate
like
going
that.
forward.
Yeah, this is some really great advice, y'all. Thank you. Okay, this is the one question we ask all of our guests. What is your most controversial non-political opinion? So this is an opinion or a feeling that you have that others just do not agree with. You are in the minority as a non-political opinion. Lauren, what about you?
So I think I'm in the minority in this in my family. I'm not sure I'm in the minority of this in the world, but I do find oatmeal raisin cookies to be superior to chocolate chip cookies.
Oh,
And it's the people in my family are not raisin in food people, so it is an unpopular opinion in this house.
I think that's a good one. I think that would be an unpopular opinion, for a lot of people. So yeah, oatmeal raisin cookies over chocolate.
Delicious.
Over
The right
chocolate?
amount of butter. Oh, it's already an unpopular opinion among the people on this podcast.
Yeah,
So
I'm
you're not.
absolutely not on board with this. I love you, Americans, for your incredibly enormous chocolate chip cookies. I don't want them with
Yes.
raisins in.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good one, Lauren. That's a good one. You're not going to get a lot of love for that one.
yeah,
Lisa,
no.
how about yourself?
So I believe that there is never an acceptable time to wear flip-flops. I just think that they are disgusting shoes and no one should ever wear them.
Lisa, that's not controversial. That's absolutely a tried and true rule. It's never a good time to wear. Well, here's my question: does that also extend to Crocs?
Oh, Crocs you can wear. It's not a flip-flop. Like why? It's the thing about separating your
It's
toes.
still
It's
open.
just weird.
It's a shoe with holes in it. There's not that much difference between Crocs and flip flops in my mind. Okay, but I can get down with you with no flip flops. There's no acceptable time. I agree. I agree with that. Ruth, how about yourself?
I'm so glad this is virtual because I don't have flip flops on today because it's about 2 degrees outside, but I wear them all the time. I've got the feet of a hobbit. I wear them to the office. I'm 100% in flip flops. Sorry, Lisa. It's a good job we've worked together virtually and not in real life. So, my most controversial non political opinion is that marshmallows have no place in a hot chocolate.
Oh,
Mm.
Wow. So what do you put in your hot chocolate?
Whipped cream.
Oh,
Is that an American
interesting.
topping? Yeah. I'll have
it
that.
can
I'll
Yeah.
have
be.
some. I'll have a chocolate sprinkle. I'll have do chocolate flakes. Is that a thing? Like the
Okay.
stick of
Yeah.
chocolate? Yeah, they can
Yeah.
go in. Never a marshmallow.
Never a marshmallow. Do you like marshmallows and other things?
I like them toasted, but I think I like more
Okay.
the kind of the process and the theatre of toasting a marshmallow over fire and trying to like not drop it in or burn yourself or burn a
Mm-hmm.
child. But not in a hot chocolate.
Okay.
No.
All right. I like that. I love the food ones. Like the food ones always
Mm.
like, yeah, get people. The sandals one's the first one I heard, even though I completely agree, Lisa. It's just okay. That was awesome. Thank y'all. All right, so let's talk about you and your team's work that you've been doing. So first off, tell our listeners about just your individual career paths and how you got to where you are today. We'll start with Lauren.
Sure. So I've always been like an American history, like political news junkie, and so majored in government in college, really cared about the work of government. And out of college, I actually ended up in the private sector, but I was not so motivated by bottom lines and profits. And so I moved into working at a public policy think tank that focused on social economic justice issues, and really worked in this middle ground of being able to translate the work of advocates to government and policymakers and vice versa, to be able to get that voice in the room for the policymaking. And so I was really inspired and motivated by the work that we did to help like policymakers be able to better understand the work and the impact of the work on the ground and translate that into policy, and wanted to continue working with governments that can be true actors of change to help do their work better. I like to say I've always worked with and alongside governments and never in government. So I always, always hands down in awe of folks who are actually doing the work day to day, and see that there's a really important role to play in the ecosystem of trying to move and push and to challenge and to provide the support that they need to do their work better. And so I did that through various jobs, and started where I am now with Results for America, working on the What Works Cities initiative when we launched our certification program just about 5.5 years ago, where I still am
Awesome.
now and looking to continue to grow the work.
Oh, that's great. That's an awesome journey. Thank you for sharing. Lisa, how about yourself?
Yeah, so 5 years ago, I was in grad school for transportation planning, and I guess I thought I would be working in the bicycle pedestrian safety space, getting rid of parking minimums, upzoning, implementing protected bike lanes. And now I am leading the open data program for one of the busiest transit systems in the world, which is crazy. And I think a huge reason how I got in this role was through my work with Lauren at Results for America, where we worked with so many cities across the country on standing up open data programs that followed best practices. And that was just a really cool job to have. Like my first one out of grad school, I got connected to so many cool people and like local government practitioners who just really cared about the work they did. So grateful for that part of the journey, and also to kind of be on the other side of things now and understanding their pure frustration sometimes in implementing best practices when it comes to open data and performance management.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. And Ruth, last but not least, tell us about your journey.
I wish I graduated from grad school 5 years ago, but sadly it's more like 20. We'll skip over that bit. I wish I was as young as Lisa is. I went to university and did geography, and will openly admit I had no idea what I wanted to do with it. But I seem to have found a career which is incredibly interesting, which has sort of the themes through of helping governments be better and do better for the citizens that they serve. So after university, I went to work for Nesta, which is the UK's innovation agency, and worked on various different projects and studies and initiatives to understand how government can be more effective and how innovation can be a more central part of public service delivery. I left Nesta and went to work for Toney Associates, which is a global management consultancy, and we helped governments around the world on the path to reform. And I helped set up the policy and research team there. I left consultancy and I did two things. I started a PhD, which looks at how philanthropic foundations are influencing city government decision making, which I've just handed in and should be coming out hopefully quite soon. And I also started a consultancy company. And it was through that consultancy work that I had the privilege and the fun of working with Lauren and Lisa at Results for America. And I worked on various other projects in that time as well. And now I work in the UK government for the Open Innovation Team, which is a in-house consultancy which supports agencies and departments across the UK government to more effectively understand problems and generate solutions.
Awesome. Really cool stuff, y'all. A little bit jealous, but yeah, this is great. We've got a great group of people here. Okay, so what inspired your group to research about data-driven practices in local government? Why was this so important to look at?
Yeah, so when I was at Results for America, we used the term data-driven a lot. And we also heard the term data-driven a lot from the people we were working with. And I think I realized in our conversations with different city leaders and government officials that sometimes we weren't using the term in the same way, or maybe we were, but it was kind of this nebulous concept that vaguely meant the same thing to some of us, but also maybe didn't. And I don't know, sometimes it reminded me of when you're like early in your career and you're in a meeting and someone uses an acronym and you don't know what it means, so you don't ask. And then it becomes very quickly too late to ask, and you're not quite sure what everyone's talking about. Sometimes I felt like that with the phrase data-driven local government, where you'd be in a conversation with somebody and halfway through realize, oh, maybe you aren't thinking about this the same way that I'm thinking about it. So I think a big goal of this project was to really define that term and define it in a way that resonates with people who are using the term data-driven local government.
Yeah,
I think one other part of this research that we wanted to focus on was to take this newly defined term and make it more tangible by demonstrating who the leading local governments were in this, quote, data-driven space. So I know that I personally am someone who learns best by having concrete examples, and identifying real-world local governments who fit that definition of being data-driven was really helpful for me to conceptualize what the definition actually meant.
yeah, that's awesome, and that makes a lot of sense to me. You're absolutely right. I think a lot of different governments or different individuals in government stakeholders have different definitions of data driven, and we're all at different phases or practices for that. So being able to really try to hone in on, okay, what does this really mean, and have a shared understanding definitely makes sense. And I'm interested, based on your research when you started this work, what was the current data ecosystem in local governments, that y'all kind of found? Because as I said, local governments are all in different kind of places with their data driven practices. So where was the current state when you started this research?
Yeah, so I think that, Tony, what you just described pretty much was what we found on our side as well as the current state. Is that what we did find is that municipalities and governments of all sizes and structures in all regions across the United States, really were using data to try to tackle local challenges and to inform decision making, and that there was a lot of variety of the levels of dedication or staff that they might have to do so, capacity to do that, ability and skill set within their governments to do it, and that there were cities that were very early in their journey, or were more advanced, but overall there was an overwhelming desire to do it and to say you're doing it and to be able to do it, but definitely also a desire for guidance on how to do it best, how what to focus on, what to apply, what to measure, how to be able to know if you're successful. So there's a lot of interest and desire to do the work, a desire for guidance on how to do it, and then also I think the ecosystem at large was there's also this desire outside of government to help local governments be able to do this better and set them up for success, to be able to impact the outcomes that could be achieved, if all of those things could happen, if cities could be better set up capacity wise to do the work.
Yeah, so a lot of it's something I think you said that was really interesting is, you know, local governments wanting to do it, but also seems like they're seeking resources to figure out like how do we actually do this in a effective and meaningful way. Yeah,
That's right.
that's really interesting. So you started this journey looking for, to develop or looking for a common definition. And so in your research, how did you develop the definition that you ultimately landed on, in the research report? And if you could also share what that definition was, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. So, as Lisa and Lauren both say, there's a lot of discussion and debate, and the term data driven is used a lot. A quick Google search will throw up over 38 million search results when you put in what does data-driven government mean. So there's no shortage of discussion and debate. But as both Lisa and Lauren have noted, there's not often a definition that underpins the use of the term. We looked at the academic literature and we couldn't find a definition, even in those studies which explicitly used data-driven local government in their papers. And we found this problematic. As Lauren said, it helps to make the field tangible if there's a definition that others can use. It helps to anchor debates. It helps to make sure that everybody's talking in a shared language, talking about the same things, working on the same journey. And that's important if resources and ideas are going to be shared, and that cities and others can share and their successes and emulate best practice and avoid common pitfalls and mistakes. So in our study, we were really keen to check if cities are using the same language and had a shared meaning when they're talking about data-driven local government. So as part of our study, we surveyed cities and municipalities across the US and received responses from 105 officials working across 74 unique cities and municipalities with a population of over 30,000. And our survey asked a range of different questions, but one that helped us with the definition was we explicitly asked survey recipients, how might you describe your city's working definition of data-driven local government? So what did we find? Overall, most respondents, 65%, could provide a definition for their city's data-driven local government efforts, whereas 17% simply described their city's data-driven work but did not provide any definition for it. 10% said that their city is currently developing a definition, and 4% of our respondents admitted that they don't know how to define data-driven local government. So what does this tell us? Well, a good sign is that the majority of municipalities and cities can describe their data-driven efforts. But our research also shows that over a third of respondents were unable to provide a definition. And we looked across all the responses that we received to identify the key words and phrases. And the most commonly used phrase was better decision making, followed by efficient and effective services, and the need to improve resource allocation. And these keywords were interesting, and they helped to emphasise the importance of leveraging data to improve effective, equitable and impactful services for residents. So we drew upon these to generate a new practitioner-led definition. So in our study, we defined data-driven local government as the administration of a city, town or other municipal government that provides effective and impactful services that better serve residents by strengthening transparency and engaging residents to collect, analyse and use qualitative and quantitative data to define goals, track and evaluate performance, identify and solve problems, and to support decision making. And to our knowledge, this study is the first to define data-driven local government, and it's the first depiction of a local government network of data-driven efforts. We think this is important for two overlapping reasons. One, we think it will make an important contribution to scholarly debates. Firstly, to provide a definition to help anchor that work. And secondly, scholarly debates so far have tended to conceptualise data-driven government in the realm of algorithms and computing, quantitative, machine learning, AI. And these elements are really important and they're part of a data-driven local government, but they're only one part of it. And as our definition shows, local governments are taking a much broader view of what data is. Data can be both qualitative and quantitative. It can encompass a range of different research methods. And it's not just the domain of particular areas of government, such as IT or analytical units. Instead, data is relevant to all levels and areas of government as well. So we're really excited about this new definition, and we hope that it can contribute to scholarly debates and also to the field of practitioners as well who are on a data journey, and also those other organisations that are seeking to support them. So the foundations and the other organisations which are helping to spread data-driven practices across cities.
Yeah, I mean, that's really awesome, and I love that definition. I think one of the things that stood out to me with that definition is, the desire for data-driven practices essentially to help governments, is a means to an end to be better decision makers, Did you, in your research and talking with and surveying, practitioners, did you kind of, feel people talking about the difficulty in trying to figure out how to make better decisions for their own respective local governments?
Yeah, we didn't touch on that explicitly. I think there is a challenge. One of the things that we did come out that was a challenge for local governments was defining the activities that go into being a data-driven local government. Cities and municipalities were really good at talking at the outcomes and their ambitions that they want to see by being data driven. So improving decisions,
Mm-hmm.
improving services, being more effective for residents. But they were less clear on how they were going to get there, the specific activities that they were going to deploy, the particular interventions, the staff that they need. And I think that loops back to what Lauren and Lisa were saying, which is there's a huge recognition in the value of data and what data can do and what it can be. But I still think support is needed to help officials in governments, probably not just at a city level, probably beyond that as well, to understand how you then do it. So the will is there. I think there's still a bit of a knowledge and capacity gap in how you realize that and make it tangible, and implement it so that you can actually reap those benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense even from my own experience in local government. One question that I have for Lisa is, Ruth, you were talking about how you developed the definition, but I'm really fascinated in the methodology of how you got there. I mean, one, like, where did you find all those contacts to reach out to those people in the survey? Because that was a lot. That's a lot of people you mentioned that you reached out to. And two, after you had the definition, did you try to validate that definition with the people that you surveyed, and what were their responses, if any, about that definition?
Yeah, so we sent the survey to, I think, over 2,000 local government staff and electeds. Most of these, well, no, I shouldn't say most. A large portion of these emails came from results from America's Network. That was a huge benefit of Lauren and I working there. We work with local governments all the time and have great contacts, so we had a big list to pull from to start. But we didn't want the entire survey population to just be cities who were familiar with our work. And so our lovely intern, Chris, shout out to him, did a lot of work to go browse the internet and pull as many email addresses as he could from other cities that we did not have previous contacts with. And that made our final list of over 2,000.
Wow.
Can you repeat the second part of your question?
Yeah. So I was just more interested in general, like the research methodology you used to really help drive this research and come to, the definition that you got with that Ruth shared, and in general the other parts of your research. So I really think a lot of times local governments, when they hear research, they don't really understand how the methodology is done. And so if you could shed some light on, the steps that y'all took, that would be
Yeah.
awesome. And then I can share the second part of my question after that.
So, as Ruth mentioned in the survey, we asked people to define what data-driven local government meant to them. And we also asked them to identify the people, municipalities, and non-municipal organizations that they look to as exemplars in this field of data-driven local government. So we limited their response to 3 in each of these categories to really focus where they were looking to for best practices and who they were actually connected to for their learnings. And by collecting this data, we were able to create a pretty robust network of who looked to who when it came to best practices in data-driven local government. We used a open source platform for social network analysis, which allowed us to really easily do the math behind this and make the calculations between the local governments and easily pull out the leaders in this space. So I think by combining this network analysis with the creation of the definition, we were able to actually we were able to show these are the cities that follow this definition that we've created, and they are already being looked to as leaders in this field.
Yeah, that's really cool. And before I ask you, who those cities are, Were you able to get any feedback on the definition that y'all developed in your research?
Ruth, do you remember if we did that?
No, it wasn't part of our research process, but it's definitely something that we are keen to either we do or some other researchers take on and test it out, because I think it has relevance. It'd be useful to see how it resonates with a US city and municipal audience, but it also potentially has relevance for other geographies and jurisdictions. So it would be interesting to test it out and see how others respond. Lauren, I don't know if you've had feedback amongst your cities.
Yeah, no, I think we haven't, but we're excited about the opportunity to do so. And again, it was a practitioner generated definition, so we did take the information that the cities gave us themselves to create the definition. But the feedback loop would be wonderful to see, does it resonate as with what we generated.
Yeah. So in that network analysis, which I think is fascinating, one of the things that your study talked about was, the diffusion of innovation. So these data-driven practices kind of spreading out, across local government. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about what is the diffusion of innovation and why was it important, in particular for what you were researching, Ruth?
Yeah, so the diffusion of innovation theory is really useful in helping to understand the spread of knowledge and practice across a network or a system. It's been around for a while now. There are lots of studies that use it, although interestingly, not so many at a city and municipal level. So it was exciting for us to use it in this study in this way with data. And for this study, the diffusion of innovation theory is used to help us understand the role of social networks. So in this case, cities and municipalities, and how they share ideas and information, and also to help us identify what are called in diffusion of innovation theory, the opinion leaders. And these are those individuals or organizations who are seen as experts and trusted source of advice who are helping to spread ideas and best practice. So we drew upon previous diffusion of innovation research that found that the spread of ideas and innovation across a network is driven by local governments searching for ideas and the availability of external sources of knowledge. The theory shows us that networks and relationships aid the diffusion and the adoption of innovation, and that it's predicated by the identification and engagement of influential actors and organizations. And as I say, these trusted and respected individuals are called the opinion leaders. And these opinion leaders play an important role in helping to spread innovative ideas. So in our study, we sought to identify the opinion leaders in city and municipal governments who are looked to as trusted sources of information and who are seen as leaders in their use in data for decision making. And also we wanted to go beyond identifying the opinion leaders in US data-driven local government. And we also sought to understand what cities and municipalities as potential innovation adopters look for in opinion leaders. So in other words, why are these people and cities seen as experts? Why are they trusted? And what it is about them and their work that makes them stand out? So what did we do? Our first starting point was to draw on our survey responses to create a network of city and municipal governments. From this network, we identified 6 opinion-leading cities. These were Kansas City, Missouri, Los Angeles, Seattle, Boston, New York, San Francisco, Austin, and Denver. And these cities were identified as opinion leaders, and they're diverse. While they tend to have larger populations, they're not all large cities, and they are geographically diverse and spread across the US Census regions. Additionally, the connections between opinion leaders span the nation and were not limited by geographic boundaries or size. So why are these cities viewed as opinion leaders? In our survey, we asked respondents why they viewed these certain cities as leaders in data-driven local government. And we identified 12 codes, with the most common code being the city having a dedicated team and a dedicated capacity for data. And this helped make them stand out as a leader. The second most cited reason was the city's effort to make the data public. And the third most frequent reason was the city government possessing an effective data infrastructure. So our results suggest that The opinion leading cities have emerged as trusted sources of best practice and ideas, and they're helping other local governments to emulate and adopt data-driven methods and approaches. So then why does this matter? What's the value of identifying opinion leaders? Well, the diffusion of innovation theory and our study shows us that opinion leaders play a distinct role in a network. They help to build credibility through their expertise, and they set the bar with innovative practices that then help lead to results. The value of the opinion leaders is evidenced by what the municipalities have learned from them. The most frequently identified lesson learned were municipalities learning how to create or improve their data infrastructure and governance arrangements. This was followed by the municipalities learning how to engage residents in problem solving, data collection and storytelling. And municipalities also had learned how to manage data, including tackling issues of privacy, and also how they'd learned how to use and apply data, such as through dashboards to aid decision making and improve services. And as Lisa said at the outset, identifying these leaders and these case studies and these practices helps to make the data-driven agenda really tangible and concrete and practical, and helps to spread best practices and ideas, and helps to inspire others who may be at a different stage of their data journey.
Yeah, I mean, that's really awesome. I mean, finding opinion leaders and being able to identify where those kind of municipalities are, those local governments are throughout, America is really good to know. When you talk about opinion leaders in a network, to me that implies, both passive and active, interactions happening. Did you get a sense for, was this diffusion of innovation happening in more active interactions, or was it more, passive, where people were kind of just looking from afar and copying or just seeing what's on the website, or were there
Yeah,
actual a desire for people to like create one-on-one relationships and conversations?
yeah, it was very much those active interactions. Lisa, you were our network guru. I don't know if you want to come in on this one.
Yeah, so we asked people both. Like, we asked them, one, who are you looking to, but also who are you actually connected to and talking
Yeah.
to? And we combined those results in the network analysis, but it was very interesting to see at like an individual response level who was talking to who. And especially if it was someone that we knew from our work personally, would be like, oh yeah, we know that they are friends in real life and talk to each other about their work. So that was really neat to see that come through in the survey responses.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool to know that kind of interactions happening throughout the country to get that kind of diffusion of innovation that you're talking about. Were there any other interesting things that came out of your research that you discovered that you would like to share that we haven't, discussed yet?
One thing that I do want to point out is that some of the cities identified, like New York or LA, were, I think, almost a given in part due to their size. But,
Mm-hmm.
well, I say that, but I don't want to disregard all the cool work that they do, because they do a lot of really amazing work. But I think that it was really amazing to see how far Kansas City, Missouri stood out in the survey results. They were the very clear opinion leader at this moment in time. And I would just be really interested to see someone take this research a step further and see how this holds up over time, right? This was a survey done in 2021. It really captures a moment in time of how people were connected, and really dependent in some ways on who the staff were at that city. And it'd be really interesting to further understand, are the programs that the people who worked at these places, like if they are no longer there, have they set up something that's sustainable? And is this still a program and municipality that people are looking toward? And I think that eye towards setting up sustainability in a data-driven local government would be fascinating for someone else to pick up and research.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting that you said that. I mean, when I read your report and I saw Kansas City, it didn't surprise me because, when I started local government, I kind of knew like Kansas City, like they're one of the ones that a lot of people look to, and it also made sense given, their location in the country. They there's a lot of other local governments that are kind of central to, and they really have a really strong public administration and local government practice. So, but to your point, it is still interesting that, they are, in terms of like when you think about city size and capacity, they do kind of, they are kind of an outlier from that sense. So, yeah, that sustainability and that longitudinal study would be really interesting to dive into for sure. I'm sorry.
I was just going to, I think Lisa touched on a really interesting point. And one of the other things that our survey looked at, which didn't make it into this paper, which maybe we should put in a future paper, is the important role that organisations like Results for America, the What Works Cities Network, are playing in brokering the connections between cities. And I think the power of networks is really important. I'm sure some city governments have those interconnections independently of that, but the role of philanthropy and other organizations which are really helping to cultivate knowledge sharing and collaboration between cities is really powerful. And I still think relatively underexplored. I think we're all kind of aware it's happening, but I think it would be really interesting to shed a light on what's happening and crucially what's effective in helping cities to learn from each other and to emulate best practice, particularly in a time when lots of officials are time poor but information rich, and it can be sometimes slightly overwhelming about the different networks and resources and toolkits and things that you can access and navigate. And I think it would be interesting to study that landscape a little bit more and see where those effective connections are coming from.
Yeah, I would love to hear it, look at that research. So yeah, if y'all want to do that and come back on, I'd love to talk about it.
Happy to.
And I'm just gonna flag one more thing very, very quickly that came out also of the information and findings of what kind of identified folks to be opinion leaders or opinion leading cities. And there was also something around, as Ruth mentioned, kind of data capacity, the infrastructure, dedicated staff, the transparency. There was also something around the role that the mayor and theater leadership play in promoting these efforts. So, and I thought that was really interesting because it's something that we talk about a lot on our site over at Results for America, What Works Cities, is the role of the commitment at the leadership level to this work and how that does play a role in success of this work. And so it was interesting to see that staff at the staff level feel and see the same. So there's something more there as well.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. Lauren, I wanted to ask you a question. One of the things you said earlier is you were really, as a part of your career, passion is how do you turn policy into something that's really applicable and actionable in local government. So you've done this amazing research. So how can our listeners, how can people who find your research, how can they take what you've learned and, really best apply it in their own local government settings?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things that I think that local governments can do. One is something that came out in the surveys that there were a number of folks within local government that didn't or were either wrestling with the definition of what it meant to be data driven or trying to define it on their own. And so I think obviously we have posited a definition for that if you're one of those that are looking to create one or to really anchor into something, we would recommend and offer up the definition that we have, that practitioner-led definition that we have put together so that you can center and anchor the work that you're doing of what it means to be data-driven in that definition and have that shared definition across your entire teams throughout the local government. Another finding of the study is about the importance of the networks of local governments. And I know, we have our What Works Cities community network. ELGL is another great network of local governments. And so we would encourage local governments to seek these out and to join them and to participate in them, learn about the best practices out there, don't reinvent the wheel, and learn from successes, but also failures of other peers in order to be able to achieve the outcomes you're looking for by implementing data in your decision making. And then, another thing that would be good and a plug for Results for America and What Works Cities is to take the opportunity to reflect and assess on what your current data practices are, As the findings showed, data capacities, data teams dedicated, data infrastructure, all of those were successful for cities being identified as opinion leaders and also being able to do data-driven work. And over here at Results for America and What Works Cities, we have our assessment, which allows local governments to assess their data practices and get a sense of where they are, and also provide a roadmap of for what they could do to advance those practices to become those opinion leaders one day. And so our program is open to cities across the US, and we've actually recently expanded to Latin America and Canada for populations of 30,000 or more to assess themselves and then to join our community and be able to take advantage of the peers and these connections and this active participation that we just heard was so successful. So we would love to be able to have cities be able to do that and lean into these areas of work or like organizations that are helping support local governments to better this work.
Yeah, that's awesome. And where can people check out more of your work and especially find this research report that you've done?
Yeah. So our work is you can go to our website, whatworkscities.org. You also can go to certification.results4america.org to do the assessment. And you can follow us on Twitter, the handle @whatworkscities. And our report is published by State and Local Government Review. And so it is available via that publication. And Ruth, if there's more to share there on the report side, definitely jump in.
Nailed it, Lauren. That's everything. Yeah, that was very comprehensive. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, y'all, thank you for this really awesome conversation. I enjoyed reading, your research, and I think it's going to have really great, impacts on local governments moving forward, especially having a definition to start to be able to work off of and just seeing the power of networks and how we can make sure that we activate those networks even more to, diffuse some of the awesome things that are happening in other places around the country and the world. So the last question I have for y'all, and I don't know if you talked about it before this or if you each want to give an individual answer, but, if you could be the GovLove DJ, we ask everybody this, what song would you pick as your exit music for this episode?
I think we might each have our own answer for this. So
yeah,
I'll go first.
You give your own answer, and then I'll let our producers decide what they want to do.
Awesome. I went with, thinking music that's about government. I went to the Hamilton soundtrack, and, it's all about being there and showing up and being in the room where it happens. So that would be my plug.
Absolutely. You want to be in the room where it happens. Absolutely. That's a great choice. Lisa, how about yourself?
I did not think of an answer for this because I knew Lauren would have a good one.
That's totally fine. You trust the subject matter expert here. So that was a great choice, Lisa. I love it. Ruth, did you have one?
I have a song choice, which is Fleetwood Mac, Everywhere. And I was going to do some like cheesy data-driven local government needs to be everywhere, like jingle, but actually I just think it's a great song. So I think it would just...
It is everywhere, though.
Yeah, great song. But I'm happy to defer to Lauren's song because I think that is inspired.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get the rights to
Is there a cover of it somewhere?
Yeah, we find a cover of it somewhere. Awesome, y'all. Thank you so much for being willing to come on and talk about your amazing work. That ends our episode for today. Again, thank you for coming on and talking with me. For our listeners, you can reach us at eogo.org/govlove or on Twitter at GovLovePodcast. And we're on all of your favorite podcast subscription services. Please subscribe to GovLove through your favorite podcast service and leave us a review so more people know that GovLove is the podcast for local government topics. And if you have a story for GovLove, we want to hear it. Send us a message on Twitter at GovLovePodcast. Thanks for listening. This has been GovLove, a podcast about local government.
Alexander said, I've nowhere else to turn, and basically begged me to join the fray. I approached Madison and said, I know you hate him, but let's hear what he has to say. Well, I arranged the meeting, I arranged the menu, the venue, the seating, but no one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one really knows how the parties get to yes. The pieces that are sacrificed in every game of chess. We just assume that it happens, but no one else is in the room where it happens.